Hello and welcome to Population Blended Unit Part 3. In this particular screencast, I am going to give an overview of Part 3. Part 3, of course, has a lot of information to follow along, so I'm just going to kind of take it bit by bit to make sure you understand. For Part 3, you may work by yourself or with another person, and you're also going to need to choose an indicator group. So as we already learned, an indicator is a statistic like physiological population density or total fertility rate. There are so many indicators, we tend to put them in groups. So choose one of the following indicator groups to be the focus of this particular assignment. You can use health, economics, education, or technology. For examples of indicators that are in these groups, take a look at the population data sheet you used when you filled out your country statistics sheet, or check out the interactive charts. We're going to pop back to this again, but don't forget, back in the Ed puzzle, excuse me, you were using this chart. And remember that this chart can be changed over at the X and Y axis into a lot of different things that show a lot of different kinds of indicators. So, number 2, you'll not only be researching examples of indicators in the group you chose, you'll be using the countries you chose to make the country data sheets for Part 1. Create a Google presentation named after last names of your group members and share it with me. Each slide should have a title that relates to the part of the assignment. So you're going to be choosing from the different countries you had back when we did the country statistics sheet. If you are working by yourself, of course, that means you have 3 countries. With another person, of course, you have 6 countries. So you can just choose from the number that you have, but make sure you're always choosing a country that is related to that is actually one of the ones from Part 1. So in the presentation, collect and display the following information from the following sources. So the first one is Gapminder World Gap. Screenshot and insert into your presentation 2 world graphs that show different aspects of your indicator group. Use at least 2 indicators from your indicator group. In case you're forgetting about screenshots, if you're using an iPad, you're just basically pressing the power button and the action button at the same time. If you're using a Mac, you are going Command-Shift-4, and you can actually drag and click the size of your screenshot. If you're using a PC, which not many of you probably are, there actually is a button for screenshot. So the Gapminder World Graphs are the ones you already played with a little bit, so you can change anything on the other axes and get information. Notice that if you did pick the same kind of indicator group on both the X and the Y axis, it might not really tell you very much. So sometimes leaving one of these as income or life expectancy actually tells you a lot more, because it's actually relating that particular thing. You're relating 2 things that are more different from each other. And in that case, you often learn more about the country itself. Once you have this, of course, take a screenshot, make sure it's clear what's on the X and Y axis, okay? If you want to also, you should highlight the countries you're dealing with by just clicking on their name over here, and then it'll be really obvious what you're describing. Secondly, you're going to use Dollar Street, which is related to the Gapminder also. So you're going to screenshot and insert in your presentation 3 Dollar Street families. Get the picture in the description. For each, include a paragraph on a slide after the screenshot that explains how the images and text relate to your indicator group. So on Dollar Street, basically you can take a quick tour if you want. You can actually choose from all kinds of things that have to do with people's lives. You can choose specific countries, so you can look for ones that you worked with. If by some strange chance you can't find all of the countries, that's okay to pick a similar country if you want to. And of course, when you find something, if you click on it, you're going to get a picture, and you're also going to get a description. So this is what you screenshot and then describe how it's related. For C and D, you're dealing with something called the development goals. The Millennium Goals were actually set around the turn of the century 2000, and the target date was 2015. When those goals were worked towards, some of them reached and some of them not, the United Nations then created new goals called Sustainable Development Goals. Both of these are extremely important for understanding development and extremely important for AP Human Geography. We're going to refer to them again later in the course. For each of the goals, read the goals carefully. On a slide or two, list all of the goals that relate to your indicator group. For each one, describe how those goals relate to your indicator group. So make sure you explain how they relate. The Millennium Goals look like this. Here are the goals over on the right. You can click any one to get an update on statistics or any kind of description of what those goals mean. If you want to, you can always also take a little screenshot of the special symbol to put into the presentation. In D, again, read the goals carefully. On a slide or two, list all the goals, describe how they relate to your indicator group. This is the home page for the Sustainable Development Goals. And these goals, you can see, you can click on particular items here, and they will explain the goals themselves. Okay, so you're doing the same thing. So there is a change between these two. Some are new, some are the same. So E, on another slide, explain in a paragraph how the approach to your indicator group changed from the Millennium to the Sustainable Development Goals. So what was this change from one to the other? Finally, in your presentation, you're going to need the World Schools presentation. From the images, select 2 world schools that best relate to your countries and your indicator group. Screenshot the images and include with each description at least one of your countries and your indicator group, how they relate to the school image. So you get this presentation. You have no idea really where these places are. Take a careful look at these different classrooms and try to make an educated guess as to where you actually think there are. Select any of them just by screenshotting or by screenshotting or copying or saving the picture. And again, pick 2 world schools that relate to both your countries and your indicator group, okay, as best you can. If you can't find it directly to your indicator group, try to get something close. We're going to have a culminating activity in part 4 that you're going to actually match world schools to where they come from. So just to check what I've done here, the conclusion for part 3 screencast, be sure to follow all the instructions of part 3. In preparation for part 4, be sure you understand how to use all the resources of part 3, especially in the context of the countries you completed country statistics sheets for. And of course, make sure you handed in your presentation appropriately. You're submitting the link, but you're also making sure it's shared with me and anybody at Derry Township School District, because other people are going to take a look at your presentation.